afternoon, everybody. And it's so nice to join you virtually, at least. If I can't see you in person, I can join you virtually and feeling all the love from South Carolina. So this year, I'm going to talk to you about immune boosting foods. Now, I know that with COVID being around, that this is very much a big topic. I actually had a look on Google Trends to see what was trending in terms of COVID. And a huge thing that people have been Googling is, can you boost the immune system, and foods that boost the immune system. So I thought I'd begin with actually talking a little bit about what is the immune system, so that we can really understand how the foods that we eat affect our bodies. Okay, so the immune system is a signaling system, all right? It's a very complex system of pathways and cells that really work to defend us against infection, all right? So, you know, on a daily basis, your body is fighting off a wide variety of pathogens and foreign invaders to the body. And it really recognizes those invaders, and it will neutralize them in many different ways. But you've got two different types of immune response. So your first immune response is your innate immune response. And this is really the defenses of your body. Think of it as the kind of suit of armor that you're wearing, okay? And the first line of defense is your skin, all right? So your skin is going to keep out a huge majority of pathogens, which is why when you've got an injury, you're much more susceptible to infection of those, you know, pathogens coming in. And then your mucus, in all of your different mucous membranes, in your nose, your mouth, your ears, everywhere where you produce mucus, those will trap toxins and pathogens, and they will, you know, try and eliminate those. Now, a really, really important one is stomach acid. When I teach my class on digestion, I really, you know, take a long time to explain to my participants how important stomach acid is. And I know that is very confusing because you have all these adverts that tell you to, you know, turn off the burn and stomach acid is bad for you. And it actually is not. You need to have a good pH balance in your stomach to kill off pathogens and viruses in the stomach. All right. And then you've got enzymes in your sweat and in your tears that will help to create antibacterial compounds and also have an antiseptic antibiotic defense against pathogens. And then, of course, your immune system cells in your body that are recognizing those foreign cells and, you know, basically disabling them, you know, neutralizing them. Then your second type of immune response is your adaptive or acquired immunity. And what does this mean? This really means that your body is learning to recognize pathogens and it's doing something about them. All right. So the first one is what you're already born with. And the second one is the immunity that your body is creating. So what happens is that, you know, many of the cells and organs in your body, like your spleen, your thymus, bone marrow, your lymph nodes, all of those are capable of recognizing foreign substances that enter the body and that those cells shouldn't be there. Okay. So then those organs in your body will create cells that will create antibodies, and they will then attack the invader, all right? And then they will actually adapt to create your own body's vaccine against that pathogen, to remember them. So it's very interesting with the coronavirus. It's been, I've been reading a lot of literature about this, and apparently a lot of people have been exposed to a very small amount of this. So it's actually kind of what they call herd immunity, which is a natural immunity to this. But it's a very tricky thing because, you know, if your immune system can't fight back, then you could become incapacitated with it. So that's really just how your body's own immunity creates kind of a natural vaccine against these different pathogens and viruses that are circulating about. All right. So then those are your body's system of fighting back against viruses and pathogens, right? But there's other things that can create immune triggers. So antigens. So for example, allergens like grass and pollen and dust are considered antigens, all right? And also food can contain antigens. Foods that you're allergic to can contain antigens. And what happens is that your immune system goes into overdrive and your body is producing a hyper response. It's releasing a lot of white blood cells, and it can create what's called a mast cell reaction. And it doesn't look or feel so good because you might break out in hives or have difficulty breathing, or have swollen and puffy eyes, very stuffy nose. So this can range from very mild, like a seasonal allergy, to a quite serious response if your body really is allergic to that antigen and it's created a very, very heightened immune response. All right. Then the second type of immune trigger is autoimmune diseases, and these really are hereditary. You could be born with something like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or type 1 diabetes, and this causes a hypersensitivity, and your immune system basically attacks yourself. So this is a very delicate thing, which is managed with medical intervention and through diet as well, can be very, very helpful in keeping the autoimmune response at bay, keeping it regulated. And then there's immunodeficiency disorders, and these are things that can completely disable your immune system. It can be genetic or it can be acquired, like something like AIDS or like cancers, okay? So that's just a quick overview of the immune response, all right? Now, other things that can depress the immune system. Older age. Unfortunately, as we age, our immune-related organs like the thymus will produce fewer immune cells to fight off the infections. And this can be made much worse by micronutrient deficiencies. So, you've got your macronutrients, which is your protein and your fats and your carbohydrates, and then your micronutrients are all of your vitamins and minerals. So I'm just touching on this because it's really key as to what you eat can, as you age, help your body to make up for the fact that you are producing fewer of your own immune cells, all right? Then factors like toxins, pollution in the air, if you're living in a moldy house, excess alcohol, all of those factors can also depress the immune system. And then one thing that's really come to light now with the coronavirus is excess weight. Obesity is definitely associated with chronic inflammation because your fat tissues unfortunately produce inflammatory adaptive cytokines, okay? And what this is doing is it's upregulating the immune response, the inflammatory response, and so your immune response is compromised. And this is why it's also important to take care of yourself and, enjoy the good things in moderation, but keep moving and keep eating right, okay? Because we want to be fighting back and keeping our immune response as strong as possible. So other factors that depress the immune system: poor diet, malnutrition, or if you have a diet that's lacking in nutrients that are needed for the activity of the immune cells and the antibodies. Some foods can increase inflammation and other foods can decrease inflammation. And one of the most problematic foods is sugars, okay? It's been proven that high sugar diets increase the inflammatory markers in your blood, including C-reactive protein. So as you now understand, you increase inflammation, you depress the immune system because your body's working harder to deal with those inflammatory cytokines in the system. So yes, I do use sugar in some of my recipes, but I'm very particular about the kind of sugar and also the amount of sugar that I use. It's very, very important to, treat sugar as just something to be had in moderation. Okay, so I'm not here to take away all your fun, guys. Don't be nervous. All right. So an immune boosting diet can help to prepare your body, like putting on that suit of armor, all right, to lessen those microbial attacks and reduce your inflammation. So your immune response is really, really relying on the presence of micronutrients. Think about it as your protein and your fats and your carbohydrates are mostly what are going to be the fuel in the tank to keep the car going, all right? But think about your micronutrients as your spark plugs and the oil that's in the engine. If you don't have those things, it's going to malfunction. So this is why it's really, really important to eat a variety of foods and foods that are very much critical and needed for the growth and function of the immune cells. And some of them are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, iron. I will send you guys some notes afterwards, okay? Now, when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking about what is the most important takeaways that I can give you, because I'm sure it's not the first time you're hearing someone tell you this, right? That you should eat your leafy greens and you should eat, you know, your healthy fats. Not the first time you're hearing this. So I thought about it and I thought I'm going to tell you about top 3 things that you can do to change your diet and be healthier. And then I'm going to tell you about 3 surprisingly healthy foods that you might consider to be unhealthy and that can be healthy for you, all right? So number 1 of the foods that I want you to work on changing if you want to live a longer and a healthier life. And I'm doing kind of an eat this, not that thing here. So the first one is sugars. It's important to reduce the amount of sugar that you're eating, but it's also important to look at the kind of sugar that you're eating. So you want to make sure that you're not eating refined sugars, that's bleached white sugars, and sugars that have gone through excess processes, because in fact, sugar cane does in fact contain vitamins and minerals, believe it or not. And when it's been refined and stripped away and bleached, you know, you're losing a lot of those nutrients. The second sugar that I want you to avoid as far as possible is high fructose corn syrup, okay? Now, sugar is actually quite expensive to produce, and it's usually produced from cane sugar. High fructose corn syrup is very, very cheap to produce. And I know that there was a huge campaign for many years that high fructose corn syrup is the same as sugar, and it's really not, because high fructose corn syrup is responsible for lipogenesis, for fatty liver, all right? So as far as possible, avoid high fructose corn syrup. Then the next one, which is really quite surprising, is something called agave. And everyone thinks that agave is so healthy, and you know, it's the blue agave from Mexico, and it's so healthy. Well, first of all, the process of making agave, they use a lot of very, very caustic chemicals. But the thing is, agave is molecularly the same as high fructose corn syrup. So surprisingly, it's one that I actually would like you to try to avoid as well. All right. So I'm talking about the sugars that you would add to your recipes and have your coffee and tea at home. All right. So then the sugars that you can enjoy in moderation, okay? Looking for unrefined sugars, like sugar in the raw, okay? In the Mexican stores, they've got these panela, they're sort of cakes, and it's just cane sugar that's been dehydrated, and you buy it kind of in a hard cake. I like to use it and grate it because it's got the most wonderful, rich caramel taste, and it's actually very high in B vitamins and minerals, all right? So when you're going to use sugar, go for unbleached, unrefined sugar in the raw is what you want to look for. Real honey. And why do I put real honey? Isn't honey real? Well, you would think so, but unfortunately, a lot of honey that you sort of mass-produced labels that you see has been mixed with ordinary, you know, sugars like high fructose corn syrup. It's a huge scam in the honey industry. If you can find beekeepers near you in your local area to buy honey from your local area loaded with pollens is actually a wonderful immune-boosting health food for you to have around. Maple syrup, and the grade B is better than the grade A. The grade B is not as boiled down and as sugar concentrated, and you're going to get the profile of the minerals as well in the grade B. I actually prefer the taste of the grade B. And then malted grain syrups like rice syrup and sorghum syrup are acceptable. And then there's actually a sugar that I really enjoy using is coconut sugar, because I really enjoy the taste of coconut sugar. And again, it's an unrefined sugar, and it's very high in a vitamin and a mineral profile. And then a really big one is sugar substitutes. Okay, so I know a lot of you might still be using your pink and blue packets of sugar substitutes, all right? Things like Equal and NutraSweet and Sweet and Low, all right? I'd like you to please rethink those, because those artificial sweeteners are really very neurotoxic to the body, and there's numerous studies that prove that they really are not healthy. And then the other one is Splenda. Splenda is in a category of its own. because the advertising will tell you that it's made from sugar, which technically it is, but it's gone through such a vast chemical processing that it really doesn't resemble the original product, and it doesn't have any of the same nutritional value to it. Now, sugar alcohols, all right? So these are things like erythritol, xylitol, mannitol. You know, the Truvia is a sugar alcohol, xylitol. Now, I really cannot find literature to say that it is bad for you in any, you know, in small amounts. But if you eat too much sugar alcohol at once, you will have extreme digestive distress, okay? I remember a yacht that I worked on where the owner's wife bought these gummies that were made from, I think it was mannitol. And yeah, we had to remove the gummies because you eat too many of those, that's really a problem, you know? And then my choice for sugar substitutes that I prefer to use when I want to cut down on the sugar in some recipes is natural sweeteners, either stevia, and my favorite actually is monk fruit. I like to use monk fruit. And what I'll often do, and you'll see me talk about this on Friday in the class with chocolate, we'll be going to be eating the most delicious chocolate treats. But what I do to cut down on the sugars is that I can remove part of the sugar and replace it with a little bit of the sugar sweetener, and then you're not getting any kind of a weird taste, but you also are cutting down on the sugars. Now, this is why it is so extremely important to read labels, because I went to the grocery store and I took pictures of these products. You see, it says here, Splendor Naturals with stevia and pure organic stevia. Now, if you just looked at these bottles, you know, in the containers in the grocery store, you might think, oh, well, that's amazing. It looks so good. It looks so organic and healthy. And then turn over the label and look at the back. The first ingredient is erythritol, and that's the sugar alcohol that I just talked about, right? On both of them, the first ingredient is erythritol. What that means is that because it's listed first before the stevia, you actually have more erythritol in that product than stevia. And unfortunately, the labeling laws are so slack in this country that they can call it Splendor Natural Stevia. It actually should say erythritol with stevia is what it should say, because you're getting more erythritol than you are stevia. So why is this a problem? If you're sensitive to sugar alcohols and you buy this product, you might be causing yourself harm without realizing what's actually in the products. Please read the labels. So I know this is a ton of information and I only have a short amount of time. So I have 2 blog posts on my blog about sugars. The one is about sugar and the other is about sugar substitutes. And I purposefully try to keep the articles quite concise and put it in categories so that you could understand all the different sugar alcohols. We will send you links to those after this presentation to review so that you really have an understanding of sugars. That's a big one, guys, but that's my number one. I think if you're going to work on 3 things to change your health, the number 1 thing is reducing your sugars and eating the right sugars, okay? It's going to reduce those inflammatory cytokines big time in your body. And then the second one is fats. Eat this, not that. Fats to avoid. Hydrogenated oils, damaged fats, fried foods. And I put there, I know. Because who doesn't love a nice crunchy French fry, right? Or a fried green tomato or fried okra. There's so many foods that when you fry them, they're just absolutely delicious. And yeah, I know every now and then when we go out, I will steal a few off my daughter's plate because they're just delicious. So I'm not going to tell you to just throw it away completely, but I am saying it's one thing that you want to consider reducing, because hydrogenated oils are a class of their own. And they're basically cheap oils like corn oil or canola oils, sunflower oils, cottonseed oils that have been injected with hydrogen molecule. So they inject them with a hydrogen molecule under great pressure, and it changes the molecular structure of the fat cell. So then it can't break down, okay? So hydrogenated oils, they can use them over and over and over and over, and they will not degrade. But they are trans fats. That's what they translate to, is trans fats and hardening of the arteries, okay? What is a damaged fat? A damaged fat is any fat that's used in a way that it shouldn't be used. So a lot of oils like flaxseed oil are very, very sensitive to heat. So if you're going to use them at a higher heat, they're going to break down and become damaged, okay? Fats like olive oil, monounsaturated fats, are fine to use for medium heat cooking, but definitely not for high heat cooking. And what happens when you do this is that they produce free radical damage and they increase the inflammation. Okay, so what is it doing? It's inflammatory cytokines in your body is what it's doing, and it's upregulating your immune system, because your immune system is trying to downregulate those free radicals, inflammatory cytokines in the body every time that you eat the foods that you shouldn't eat. So these are the fats that I like to use at home. I use extra virgin olive oil, oils that are cold pressed, okay? That's the way that they've been manufactured. Avocado oil, hemp oil, coconut oil. I use butter and ghee. These are typically the oils that I like to cook with, all right? So then number 3 of the things that you can change to improve your health is processed foods, okay? Foods that are loaded with chemical additives and dyes. Do you know that there are literally hundreds of chemicals that are allowed in this country but are banned in the EU? The laws for chemicals in our foods and our beauty products have not changed literally for decades. So you have to self-regulate. Just because you see it on the grocery store shelf doesn't mean that it's okay to eat. There's definitely things that you need to work on, you know, self-regulating and changing. For example, you know, candies that are made with natural dyes, as opposed to candies that are made with, red E number 40 and so forth, chemically produced dyes. It's going to make a very big difference to your health. And really, the rule to live with is that real food doesn't have a label, so try as far as possible to eat food that it's unprocessed and its pure form as possible. So what is the anti-inflammatory diet? When people say, it's also a very, very Google term. What is the anti-inflammatory diet? So an anti-inflammatory diet is basically a high antioxidant food diet. Now, what is an antioxidant? It's also a term that you hear all the time. It's really more not a thing. It's more of a term than it is a thing. Antioxidants describe what a wide range of substances can do to remove, to bring down the free radical damage in the body. So, for example, in your plant-based foods, you've got all of these beautiful things: the flavonoids, the flavones, the catechins, the polyphenols. These are all different types of antioxidants and phytonutrients. Those are nutrients from plants, phyto, plant nutrients, okay? Think about them as nature's fire extinguisher. When you're eating all of these beautiful things, what are you doing? You're helping to lower the inflammation in the body and helping your immune system to fight back, is what you're doing when you reducing the foods that are bad for you and increasing the foods that are good for you. Is that you're bringing your body into balance, into homeostasis, and being able to be in a good place to regulate and manage inflammation. And of course, when your inflammation is reduced, you're so much more comfortable. So I've got a note for you with more information, and I'm sure you've heard this before about the anti-inflammatory foods. Vitamin A is important. You get it from dairy, eggs, liver. I really enjoy liver. A lot of people don't. If you don't, you can get it desiccated liver in capsules is a good way to get it down. Vitamin C, when coronavirus first hit, you could not buy a vitamin C supplement anywhere. But, most fruits and veggies, berries, oranges contain some form of vitamin C. Vitamin E is wonderful, a wonderful protective, particularly to the cells. And you find it in nuts and seeds, and sunflower and vegetable oils, and green leafy veggies, and then, of course, beta-carotene, which is all the beautiful colors of the rainbow that you want to be eating, the purples and the greens and, all of those. Lycopene, which is in fruits like tomatoes and watermelon, has a wonderful antioxidant. Lutein, green leafy veggies, is also in eggs. That's great for your eyes. Selenium, which is in a lot of grains and nuts and eggs. So, that's just a really quick roundup. So now here I'm going to tell you about 3 things that you can do, that you can enjoy, that you think might be unhealthy, and people say don't have it. And I'm going to show you how it can be healthy. Particularly this week in my virtual cooking classes, we're going to focus on these things a lot. So the first one is chocolate. Can I have a collective yay over there? Yay! So chocolate by itself is not bad for you. The cacao bean, actually, the ancient Incas are the ones that learned how to take the cacao bean and to ferment it and turn it into drinks. And they would turn it into drinks with different spices and antioxidants. And at first it was very revered, was very rare, and they would use it for a lot of their ceremonies. And then it became something that they, tended to the crops, and it became more part of their daily life. So dark chocolate is really, really not bad for you. The issue with chocolate is the sugars. If you're talking about a candy bar that's, got a very low percentage of the cacao in it, and it's got high fructose corn syrup in it, really the goodness from the chocolate is really negated there, because you really are having so much sugar, and the wrong kind of sugar, that the chocolate really can't do its job. So dark chocolate contains 2 to 3 times more flavonols, which is the antioxidant component in the chocolate, than milk chocolate, which is why dark chocolate is really what I prefer to have. And it supports nitric oxide production, so it really can help to lower your blood pressure, and it really is good for your mood. So I think a little bit of chocolate in your life is really important. So Friday's class, I've called it "You Had Me at Chocolate," and I'm going to do 3 chocolate recipes with dark chocolate, and showing you how we can break down the sugars in the chocolate recipes, that they really are an absolutely magnificent healthy treat with delicious chocolate. Then the second thing is coffee. Now, there's a lot of controversy. You will find as many articles on the internet that coffee is bad for you as coffee is good for you. But I have my nutrition gurus that I follow, and I really have done the research. Now, here's the thing. Moderation is what's key. The second thing is choosing clean organic coffee. Coffee is one of the most sprayed crops on the universe, because it's usually where it's raised in the tropics. It's sprayed to keep all the bugs and everything at bay. Okay. There are, growers who grow coffee, especially at high altitudes where there are fewer bugs, and raise it organically and raise it without, spraying it full of chemicals. This is why it's important to have organic coffee if you can find it. Because the huge dose of chemicals on the coffee beans is really more of a problem than the coffee itself. All right, because coffee actually can boost your metabolic rate and help you to burn fat, and again, it can help to reduce your blood sugar levels. But the key here is moderation. Talk to your healthcare provider and make sure that coffee is okay for you, with your presentation. But for most people, a little bit of coffee is not a bad thing. And then the third thing is wine. Yay! I recently learned something very, very important about wine, because I really do enjoy a glass of wine. But as I've aged, I found that I had a harder time having that wine. And I found out that conventional wine can be loaded with up to 250 chemicals in a bottle of wine. Isn't that terrible? It's absolutely shocking. So we're going to be showing you this in the presentations on Wednesday and on Thursday, the clean wine that I discovered, and I'll be pairing it with some of the different foods. The key is natural fermentation. The wine that I drink is just grapes, and sometimes they use a little bit of sulfites, but not an excess amount. It's a natural fermentation. It's allowed to ferment the natural way. All right. Red wine contains resveratrol, which is a powerful antioxidant. You really would have to drink a lot of wine to really get a huge benefit of resveratrol. But, wine by itself can be a healthy complement to your meal and to your day. So the motto of my company, Taste of Healing, is healing never tasted so good, because I absolutely believe in the balance. All right. I absolutely believe that if your food tastes bad and it's boring to you, you're not going to want to do it. And you're going to be so miserable that it's going to affect your life anyway. So I really believe in having a little bit of the things that we consider bad, but having them in a good way. For me, a treat doesn't mean driving through the Golden Arch. For me, a treat is having maybe some food that I've shallow pan fried myself in healthy fats to get that beautiful crispiness. There are definitely ways that you can do that. Or it may be, making a dark chocolate treat and cutting down the sugars, or having a glass of my toxin-free wine. So what I'm all about is showing you ways to enjoy your life with getting all these beautiful things in. On Wednesday, as Yael mentioned, I'm doing a virtual cooking class, a 3-course meal, and a 3-course meal made easy. I'm going to show you how to put it together. And on Friday, we're doing the chocolate presentation. So I do hope to see you for those, and thank you for joining me today. Let's see if we have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Carol, we have Anna who's going to ask a question.
Okay.
What can be done when someone has a low potassium, a high potassium count?
Okay. So is this something that you've been diagnosed with, that your doctor's putting you on a special diet?
Yes, but I haven't been able to get help with getting a proper diet.
Okay. Yeah. There are definitely different tricks that you can do, avoiding foods that are high in potassium, like potatoes, you know. And there's also methods of cooking that can reduce that, you know. So yeah, just reducing the potassium in the foods, you know. Do you have a registered dietitian on staff? She should be able to give you a list of high potassium foods that you can avoid, you know.
It's contradictory, so I have to talk to her about
Pardon,
that.
ma'am?
She said that she has been given a list, but it's contradictory.
Right, right. Yeah, it is kind of controversial. Absolutely, yeah. If you like, just jump on my website and schedule a call, and we can have a chat, because there's definitely different things that you can do, and you can also look at your mineral balance, because in the body there's certain minerals that are antagonistic to potassium that can help to naturally bring it down. So, I can give you some ideas to chat to your provider about, and see if they can help you. Like, for example, your other minerals like increasing magnesium can help to depress the potassium and so forth, definitely.
The website? I'll get you her website, yes.
Thank you.
Does anybody else in the auditorium have questions for Carol? Okay, let me see, Carol, let me see.
I think we've got some people online. Diane and John, I'm trying to unmute them. There we go.
Thank you. Yes,
Hi.
thank you.
How
Hi.
are you?
Very well, and it's good to see you again, Carol.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
I'm interested in how to research wines that are acceptable. How do you know when you're in a liquor store which wines would be acceptable?
You really are not going to know, because wine doesn't have a label. Wine doesn't have an ingredient label, and if wine did have an ingredient label, you wouldn't buy it. Yeah. If you go to my website, tasteofhealing.com, and you scroll through the blogs, it's a blog post that I did quite recently, and I called the blog post, "Are you eating clean but drinking dirty?" Because I was horrified to know the wine that I drink is Carlton Cellar, and it's all, you can go there and watch, click through the link and see the video that the founder of Carlton Cellar, on her why. She was studying to be a sommelier, and she was suffering awful headaches from some of the wines that she was tasting. And she took a bottle of wine to be tested and found over 250 chemicals in that bottle of wine. So unfortunately, the way that the wine is produced now, you think you've got so many choices when you go to the supermarket, all these different labels, but actually there's like 4 wineries making the same thing and putting different labels on them, right? So the grapes are sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is very, very bad for you. And then they make the wines in such a hurried way that they add sugars to them to force the fermentation. They add yeasts. They use products to change the pH of the wine, that they can literally go from it being on the vine to being in the supermarket in the same month, Yeah. So, the company that I buy my wine from was the first in this movement, and there are others that have followed suit, but I just really like what they stand for and their wine. But yeah, the regulation in the US on labeling on foods, and unfortunately now during the coronavirus, the FDA has slacked off on their labels, So you really want to be reading labels and knowing what it is that you're eating, and being more, I'm working on a resources section of my website. If you check back in about 2 weeks, it'll be up. I'm going to do a resources section of products that I trust. And if you have a question or you want me to research something, please, send me a message and I'll do it for you,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a question? Any of our darling viewers have a question?
I have another question in the auditorium.
Yes, ma'am.
Gloria has a question.
very enlightening. But I couldn't get all of them to jot them down. For instance, you were talking about sugar substitutions, like enjoy in moderation, and you had stevia and monk fruit, and like I missed the third one. So, and you had facts to avoid, and I got 3 or 4, but I missed the last 2. Are those slides available in writing somewhere, or those lists?
Yeah, I missed the whole question. Is she saying she missed some of the things?
She wasn't able to capture all the information.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. I'm going to send Yale some links for you. Okay. But in the meanwhile, if you go here to tasteofhealing.com, this is my website. Okay. And at the top of my website, I've got a search bar. And if you just put in the search bar sugar or sugar substitutes, or you can put in fats, it'll pull up those articles for you. Okay. In the meanwhile, if you want to do it right now, or, you know, a lot of the different things that I've been talking about, but I'm going to send you some bullet point notes with some additional information. I just wanted to see what it was that you were all asking me about, you know. But just go here to tasteofhealing.com and just put sugar into the search bar, and it will pull up those articles for you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else in the auditorium that has a question? Let me see if there's anything else online. Hold on one second. Is there anybody else who's joining us by Zoom that has a question for Carol? Okay, Frank Schulman does. Okay, Frank, unmute yourself. Frank, can you unmute yourself? There we go. Okay.
Okay. You had mentioned, and I don't know if you didn't mention the name of the wine company that makes the kind of wine that you will drink.
Right. It's called Scout and Cellar, and there's also a link on my website. So if you go to tasteofhealing.com and look for the blog post on wine, and I've write about the wine, and I've got some videos for you to watch there. Okay. Yeah. So I actually I have a little raffle to announce. You know, we're going to be pairing food with wine in the next 2 cooking presentations. So if you go there and read about the wine, and if you order some wine through that link, I'm going to pick one person at the end of, we'll wait about a week after the last presentation to give you a chance. And I'm going to pick one person to win a pack of 4 bottles of wine that I'll ship to you.
Now, I got another question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not normally a wine drinker. I'm not a drinker of any kind. Do you think that I might, at my age, start taking up drinking wine? That'll be good for me?
I'd say, you know, if it's not something that you've done before, there's probably no reason to start. I'm really, you know, if you enjoy wine, then why not have a glass, you know? I'm just trying to give healthier options for the people that already drink wine, you know, because my food philosophy is that you should have a little bit of the things that make you feel good, you know, they're good for the body, mind, and soul, and your approach to enjoying life. I think Jed is...
Jed, it looks like you can unmute yourself.
Jed, could you unmute yourself, please? Hold on, let me just see if I can unmute him here.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
We got you.
How often or how prevalent is to have sulfite in wines, and is that always in the label?
It's never going to be in the label. I mean, some of them will say the amount of sulfites is not going to be in the label. Some people will say may contain sulfites, but that's a bit of a misnomer because all wine is going to contain sulfites. You know, the question is just really how many sulfites did they add in the wine? So if you're drinking, you know, properly fermented wine, it will have sulfites, and in many cases, the sulfites is needed to prevent the wine going rotten. You know, it's just that wine that's made in a very expedited way, they've used additional sulfites to that wine. And when I drink wine that's had a lot of sulfites added, I know it immediately, because my body does that cytokine reaction, the mast cell reaction. You know, I break out in hives, and I feel all flushed and hot when I drink that kind of wine. Yeah.
So sulfites are natural in wine, but you got to worry about the additional.
Yes, because sulfites will be naturally occurring when the wine is properly fermented, you know, and, you know, sulfites are needed to prevent the wine going rotten, basically. But the way that wine is force manufactured in the commercial setting, they will add in a whole bunch of extra sulfites to speed up the fermentation process, and in an unnatural way. And that's why a lot of people feel so awful when they drink that kind of wine. You know, go to my website, tasteofhealing.com, and just put wine into the search bar, and it'll pull up the article. I call the article, "Are you eating clean but drinking dirty?" And honestly, this shocked me. This shocked me because I couldn't believe it. You know, I was like, but why is this allowed? But it is allowed, you know. And I've listed some of the additives that are added to wine in a mass-produced setting. And, you know, for me, I mean, I'm very candid in the article, and I am with, you know, everyone, because I think, you know, using myself as an example, I have autoimmune conditions, and as I've aged, I felt like I couldn't drink wine anymore. Sometimes I'd have just one glass of wine and feel awful, and just feel really awful the next day. And then I came across this clean wine, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because the wine is so different, and I could drink, you know, a glass or two of wine, and you can taste it. You can taste the difference in the wine. And the next day I was feeling absolutely fine. But it's just, you know, it's like beauty products. You know, one of my favorite companies for beauty products, she's a huge advocate, and she's constantly going to the Capitol and, you know, going for hearing sessions and lobbying to change the rules about the amount of toxins and chemicals that are allowed in not only beauty products, but body products, things like shampoos and toothpaste and all of that stuff. It's really shocking how behind the rest of the world we are in terms of what's allowed in our food and what's allowed in our cosmetics. It's awful. So, you know, you really need to take charge of that yourself and do what you can to reduce the body burden. Do you know what I'm saying? That's my philosophy, is, you know, creating a balance in your life, that you are enjoying your life and you're having all the delicious things, but having them in moderation. And, you know, that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Diane, looks like you have a question.
Yes, I do. Carol, can you talk a little bit about what it means to have organic labeled foods?
Yes, absolutely. So organic is a way of farming that the farmer went through a huge amount of expense to have it certified organic, and the ground has been, you know, they've not used any chemical fertilizers or pesticides on that soil or on those plants. You know, they are allowed to use certain organic pesticides, and they will use organic fertilizers to add, you know, nutrients to the soil, but those, you know, have to be regulated, and they're way more expensive, you know. So organic farming is, first of all, expensive for the farmer to do, and second of all, to get that organic labeling, they pay a lot of money for that. So oftentimes, you know, there's farmers around that I see at the farmers market, and I know that they are farming in an organic biodynamic way, but they just can't afford the certification to do that. So you really, you know, just need to know your farmer. You know, one good thing that came out of COVID in the beginning, you know, when the grocery stores literally had no food in them, when everyone just went into this, when lockdown happened and everyone went into a complete panic, and, you know, you couldn't find toilet paper for love of money, and you couldn't find meat, you know, it was all gone. There was just nothing in the grocery store. And so what happened is people turned to their local farmers, and they were buying from their local farmers, and all the local farmers could not keep up. I mean, the lady that I get chicken from, she was sold out and booked in advance for like 2 months. And now that things have normalized, you know, people have kind of gone back to their ways of shopping in the grocery store and not supporting their local farmers, you know. So that's just a way to know where your food's coming from, and talk to your farmers and understand that if it's not labeled organic, maybe they just can't afford that certification, but they're farming in an organic way, you know. Now, as far as organic goes, the environmental working group, I'm going to just type it underneath here. I'll just type it over here. I think it's EWG, EWG.org, EWG.org. It's the environmental working group. That's an organization that I like to support, because they are a really good resource for you to know what you should and shouldn't eat. They come out with a list every year that they call the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. And what that is, the Dirty Dozen are the top vegetables that matter, that you try and eat them organic, you know. And consistently, things like strawberries and peaches are on that list consistently. And then there are foods that don't matter if you eat them organic or not, like bananas and avocados. And then, you know, there's certain other vegetables that really don't matter, that you buy them organic. Now, at the end of the day, if you are saying to me, you know, this apple is not organic and this zucchini is not organic, I'd rather that you ate that apple or that zucchini as opposed to the frozen fast food meal, you know, or the food from the drive-through that's been fried. That's, you know, even though that fruit and vegetable has got a pesticide on it, it's still going to be better for you than a processed food. You know what I'm saying? So I just tell each person to do the best that you can with your choices of what you're buying, you know?
Thank you.
I think we have another question in the auditorium. Jean has a question for you.
I wonder if you could talk a bit about sodium. My husband has a kidney issue and should be on a low sodium diet. And frankly, at John Knox Village, it's a challenge because, for example, the homemade turkey burger has 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And so, how important do you believe sodium?
Okay.
And,
so this is I didn't put this in on purpose because it's so controversial and it's really hard for me to talk about it in just a few minutes. If you send me an email, I'll send you a couple of links, some scientific research links for you to look at as far as salt goes, because it's something that many of my colleagues have written about over the years. And the honest truth is that I think it's very, very misguided. You know, your body needs salt. If you just go to Google and put in sodium, potassium pump, it will describe to you the sodium and the potassium that's needed to regulate the energy inside of the cell. Okay, that's basically how we function. That's our spark plug. Is sodium and potassium getting pushed in and out of the cell is what keeps us going. All right. So obviously, it's important to keep it in balance. I feel that in many cases, you know, this sort of salt is bad for you is kind of a hangover from the 80s. It's a way of thinking that cholesterol was bad for you at 1.2. Do you remember? Like you couldn't eat eggs and, you know, all fat was bad. That was low fat, everything. I think salt is taking a long time to turn around. So I think what's important for you is to be extremely aware of where your salt is coming from. For example, frozen foods have got an incredibly high, chemically altered salt content to them. But salt from a natural source like Celtic sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, you know, the Utah, the Redmond's real salt from Utah is one of my favorites. Those salts do contain, you know, trace amounts of minerals. And if you're concerned about salt, I'd say be really careful about added salt. You know, you're going to have sodium naturally occurring in fruits and vegetables and that sort of thing, you know. And in my opinion, in most cases, your body can deal with those, you know. It's your sources of added salt that you need to be aware of.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I have a question in the front. Fred has a question.
Hi, Fred.
Hi. My question is, you have coffee down here in moderation, but you didn't mention caffeine-free or regular coffee, either in soda or in coffee. How do you feel about caffeine and the caffeine-free or dark?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. Could you repeat the question, Yale?
Fred is asking about caffeine in coffee and in soft drinks, and what if there's, is there a safe amount of caffeine? Is it something to be avoided altogether?
Caffeine is something that you definitely want to be extremely careful of, because, I mean, a lot of those soft drinks, like those Monster drinks and those energy drinks, contain the amount of caffeine that can put you into heart palpitations. You know, I'm extremely careful with caffeine. I do enjoy my coffee in the morning, and sometimes I'll have, you know, a nice cup of English tea in the afternoon. But in terms of sodas, that's something that I'd say you want to try to, if you want to reduce your caffeine, start there. You know, find something else to drink besides sodas. Now, you can get caffeine-free coffee, but here's something really important to remember, is that the process that's used to remove caffeine in a commercial way is actually very toxic. The way that they do that process is really, really bad for you. There is a process called Swiss water process, and just look it up. Swiss water process. I'll type under here as well. On tap today. Okay, so Swiss water process is a way of removing caffeine from coffee in a way that's healthy for you. And the coffee is going to be a little bit more expensive. So if it's Swiss water process, they're going to brag about it on the label. You're going to know that it's Swiss water process. But that's, you know, a way that you could enjoy caffeine-free coffee. You know, as far as sodas go, just ask yourself, you know, is it like, you know, sugar-free soda that's full of artificial sweeteners is actually in a way worse for you than just the sugar in the soda, you know. And the caffeine that's added to things like sodas are a problem, you know. Caffeine that's naturally occurring is going to be better for you than caffeine that's added. So, you know, my roundup to this question really is that everybody should watch their caffeine intake. Excess caffeine is not good for anybody. And you will know how much caffeine you can tolerate depending on your body and, you know, your health. But if your caffeine is making you feel jittery and jumpy, it's way a problem. You know, that's taking a huge impact on your adrenal glands, you know. So yeah, enjoy your coffee in moderation, please.
Does anybody else have any questions for Carol? None in the auditorium. Does anybody else online have any questions? It doesn't look like it. One thing I wanted to reiterate that Carol was telling you about regarding the wines, her friend Cindy from Scout and Cellar Winery is going to be joining us on one of her cooking classes. It's the dessert class on Friday, isn't it, Carol?
During both classes. Actually, Cindy's coming on Wednesday during the 3-course menu. She'll be with us, and on Friday I'll also have some wine pairings. Yeah.
So while Carol is doing her cooking demonstration or her cooking class, Cindy is actually going to cut in and really give you an education about organic wines and hold on, I'm being very muffled. She's going to give you a really great comprehensive understanding about organic wines and the benefit of them and all the stuff that we don't even know is in wine. I attended one of Carol's cooking classes virtually, and I saw this presentation, and it was mind-blowing. So if nothing else, it's worth tuning in for this. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in the health of wines, and I think that you will learn a lot from this presentation that Cindy is going to do as a cut-in during Carol's cooking class. So I just want to mention that. And I think a better understanding about what the detriments are, about what goes into wine that shouldn't be in there.
If you register for the class, you'll get the notes with the recipes and the shopping and so forth. And I've put the wine pairings in there already. So if you click through there, you can see which wines I've recommended to go with the food already. And as I said, to introduce you to the wine, what you can do is, the shipping is free over $100. So maybe if you just want to try one bottle, you can group together and, order together so that you can get the free shipping, and it comes pretty fast. So from now until, I think I made it the 18th of October to give you all time to order. Any orders that come through the links in the order through the link in the notes, okay? We'll pick one person to win a pack of 4 bottles of wine, and there's different choices. So you don't have to take exactly that. You can choose what you'd like, but it'll take you through. And on my website, if you go to the article, but Cindy will be there to answer your questions as well on Wednesday. I'm really excited about that.
Does anybody else have any questions for Carol today? I think that's it. Carol, thank you so much. We're so excited. I'm really excited for your cooking class. I wish I could be doing it from home because I would absolutely be cooking along with you, but we're very excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
If anybody here is not signed up for those cooking classes virtually and you're interested, please be sure to sign up, because we have a cookbook of sorts. It's Carol's recipes and all of these notes that she's mentioned. And I want to be sure to get the book to anybody who signed up. So if you haven't signed up, please do so. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you.